Hi, Starlo here. So far in this series of Let's Go Fishing, we've looked at choosing and putting together your gear, we've learnt some basic but very effective knots and rigs, and we've had a look at baits and lures. Now it's time to focus on casting so that we can get our lines out there into the water and actually catch some fish. Casting with modern tackle is pretty easy, but like most things in life, you'll get better at it with practice. It's not a bad idea to hit the backyard or the local park and do some practice casting before you go fishing, or even between fishing trips. I'm using a special casting plug, which is actually a weight coated in plastic, but you could use a sinker or an old lure with no hooks on it. But one thing you need to be really careful of is to choose an area where there's absolutely no chance of hitting anybody or any property. You don't want to put one of these through a window. Take a target of some sort with you. A bucket or an old pot or a tin is ideal. Place this out on the grass at a comfortable casting distance. Start off with about 20 long paces or strides from where you're going to be standing. Now, to cast with your light to medium spinning outfit, hold the rod and reel like this, with the reel stem extending between whichever fingers feels most comfortable for you. Next, wind the weight up until it's hanging about 30 or 40 centimetres below the rod tip. Then open the reel's bail arm while you hold or trap the line to stop it spilling off the reel and the weight falling to the ground. There are two ways of doing this, and one's better than the other. I've got a bit of an admission to make here. I learnt the less effective way when I was a kid, and I've stuck with it ever since. That way is to pick the line up with your finger like this, then open the bail arm. It works fine, but it's not quite as good as the other way, which is to trap the line against the spool with your fingertip like this. That gives you more control and greater accuracy. But I'm going to stick to my wrong way. You use whichever one you're most comfortable with. Okay, point the rod at the target, then take it back over your shoulder smoothly and swing forward and release the line when the rod's at about 45 degrees above the horizontal. You might need to experiment a little bit with this to get it right. If you release it too early, your weight's going to shoot up in the air, and if you release too late in the stroke, it's going to fly down into the ground in front of you. Just get comfortable with it, and you'll soon find that it's sailing out there sweetly. One tip that I will give you is to always try and have your weight hanging roughly the same distance below the rod tip when you cast, and also try and go back through exactly the same casting stroke each time. Makes for much more accurate casting. Now, so far what I've been showing you is called single-handed casting, and it's great for light gear, light lures and sinkers, but if you want to throw something a little bit heavier, you might need to bring your other hand into play down here on the butt of the rod. Then you can use that hand to pull down as you push forward and over with your dominant hand on the rod. Suddenly you'll find you're getting a lot more distance. A lot of people actually prefer to cast that way nearly all the time. Find out what works best for you. So far we've concentrated entirely on our light to medium spin tackle. Other styles of reel, like the side cast and the bait caster that we looked at way back in part 1 of the series, require slightly different casting styles, and they can be a little bit trickier to master, but they're not really that hard. We'll come back and look at those in more detail at another time in another series, but if you're really keen, you'll find plenty of good video clips on the internet about how to cast these and other reels. For now, I just want to encourage you to get out there onto the grass or onto the water and practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the better you'll get at casting and the more fish you'll catch. And catching fish is what the next and final part of this series is all about. We're going to look at hooking them, playing them, landing them, and then what to do with those fish when you do catch them. Until then, tight lines. Yes!